On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, cannabis strains on Bitcoin's blockchain, a relief for patients and growers. TunnelBear is the simple VPN app that makes it easy to browse the web privately and enjoy a more open and secure internet experience. Try TunnelBear for free by checking out the link in the video description below. Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I'm your host Chris Coney, so let's get into today's article. Now, it took me quite a while today to select an article. I ravaged all of the news sites and I was really struggling to find one that was worthy of your attention. And I settled on this one. This was actually one of the first ones that I considered. And having given it a second look, I think it's got some legs to it. So I would say this is a slow news day because I was trawling and I was starting to get a little bit frustrated that I couldn't find anything decent to share with you. But then when I read this for the second time, I thought, actually, this has got some deeper stuff to it that we can discuss. Not just from, it's a cannabis article, but there's a lot more to it than that, as you will see. So it's from Bitcoin.com, it's written by Alan Scott, and it's entitled Cannabis Strains on Bitcoin's Blockchain, a Relief for Growers and Patients. So it starts out saying a dozen medicinal cannabis cultivators and processors have partnered with Medicinal Genomics to record and track the genetics of cannabis strains on the Bitcoin blockchain to ensure a product that is consistent and of consistent quality. Now, if you broaden your mind a bit here, you can see that cannabis is just a plant. So whatever innovations are created for the cannabis industry, which we will see later in this article, they'll be directly applicable to dozens of other growers of other plants, right, who might also want to ensure consistency and quality. Say the organic food industry, for example, or even broader would be things like fish from sustainable sources. All those certifications we could store on the Bitcoin blockchain so that they're immutable and you can prove that the fish you are buying in the supermarket is in fact from sustainable sources. And also note specifically here that they have opted to use the Bitcoin blockchain to do this rather than building their own, right? And this is one of the most interesting elements to me. In fact, I had a question on the YouTube comments, if it was yesterday, it was Ethereum. Like, why would someone choose to build on Ethereum versus building their own chain versus doing it another way? And I think this is a very interesting question that needs constantly reviewing and revisiting. And the company Medicinal Genomics, by the way, is a laboratory, and they specialize here in DNA testing, and they specifically test cannabis to certify its contents. So they're going to do the testing and they're going to store their results on the Bitcoin blockchain so those results cannot be manipulated once they've been uploaded. So with that said, let's continue with the article. The next part I've highlighted here is, it says, the lack of consistent strains from the same grower can present significant medical challenges for patients. Even as slight changes in the plant's genetics can alter its effects. I didn't know that. So for example, many patients require a specific strain of cannabis with a certain cannabinoid profile for effective treatment. Therefore, patients risk losing symptom relief if the plant's genetics vary, which can often happen in this nascent industry. And that was a complete mind opener. I'm no cannabis expert. But the more I learn about it, the more there is to it. Like it's just a whole industry, and like anything, like any subject, once you start delving into it, you see that how rich it is, and there's much more to it than meets the eye. That's pretty much the case with everything I've ever learned about. When you first get into it, you think you've got it, but then when you get into it, you're like, wow, there's like a whole world of detail in there. And now where my mind goes with this particular paragraph is that I can envision an app that we could build that would enable someone to say, search the blockchain for the strain that they wanted. Because remember, a blockchain is just a database that's been distributed and is immutable. Which is kind of one of the things you have to consider is whether you need a blockchain or not, right? If it doesn't have to be decentralized and immutable, then you're probably better off using a centralized database solution. So it's not like a blockchain is this silver bullet that will solve every computing problem. It solves very specific computing problems that require things like decentralization and immutability. If you don't need those things, you're probably wasting your time and money building a blockchain. So with this cannabis app that I would build, say, 1 month you might end up buying from one grower, and then the next month you might end up buying from a different grower. And that's because, according to this here, it's hard for a certain grower to produce exactly the same cannabinoid profile every time. But if, however, all the growers were putting their plants' compositions on the Bitcoin blockchain like this, then we have a worldwide, or at least a nationwide, inventory of the strains that are available. So you wouldn't really care where it was coming from. You wouldn't care which grower it was coming from, because the reputation of the grower would actually go with the strains on the blockchain. So you just search the blockchain for the strain you want, and there it is, certified on the blockchain. That's the strain I want. Boom. Now, who put that there, who grew it in the first place, is less important to you as someone who's applying cannabis for medical reasons, because you want that specific cannabinoid profile to treat a specific ailment, right? So that's brilliant. Now, the next bit here in yellow says, it's a quote, "The current industry's nomenclature for identifying and characterizing the medicinal benefits of a strain has no consistency, reliability, or association with the quality and or effectiveness of the products used by patients." And the reason I've highlighted that bit is that we need to remember this all relates specifically to the medical use of cannabis, because as it says earlier, a slightly different cannabinoid profile may leave it ineffective in terms of relieving a patient's symptoms. I would say that sits in contrast to someone who is using cannabis for recreational use, is that you wouldn't be as picky about the specific cannabinoid profile. If you were doing it for recreational use just to get high, you might prefer a particular strain, but it's not as important as if you are treating a medical ailment, right? Because there's not much margin for error there. If you are doing it for recreational use and you get a slightly different high, I don't think you're going to care that much unless it's dramatically different. And in terms of free market economics, what that means is then that medical marijuana is going to attract a higher price because of that very specific profile that you need. And if the strain you want is particularly rare or in high demand, the free market will adjust the price. The question is, who is willing to pay more for that particular strain? Is it someone who's got chronic pain, or is it someone who's using it for recreational use? Well, I would argue that the value of that particular strain of cannabis to someone who has, chronic pain, I would believe they would be willing to pay a hell of a lot more than the person using it for recreational use, because it's worth more to the person with chronic pain. So in terms of the free market being a massive auction, which is what the economy is, it's just an auction where everyone's bidding for the available products and services, the person with the chronic pain is going to be willing to place a much higher bid than the person using it for recreational use, right? So that's that bit. That's all I want to say about that. In the green bit here, under a heading that's called "Others Have Bastardized Blockchains," the green bit I've highlighted says, interestingly, MGC, which is Medical Genomics Corporation, opted for the tried and true distributed ledger, which they're talking about Bitcoin, at a time when just about every other major corporation and bank have started building their own blockchains. And then at the bottom of this paragraph, it says, the market cap of a coin is the hack bounty. This is very interesting. So the hack bounty on Bitcoin is $10 billion. And it says here, Ethereum has been hacked with the DAO rollout, and Dash only has a market cap of $81 million. So this thing about the market cap of a coin is the hack bounty, that's a good point. Without knowing much about the technical makeup of a particular blockchain, a person can apply this simple logical test, which is that Bitcoin represents the highest payoff if you're able to hack it. And that hasn't happened. Now, ironically, if I hacked Bitcoin and started stealing coins, that might cause people to lose faith in the network, which would mean the value would go to zero, which would mean that the coins that I stole would be worth nothing, which means what's the point in me hacking into it in the first place? So there's this kind of funny logical loop as a deterrent, because the very thing that I steal causes it to become worthless by the very fact that I steal it. The only way you'd make any profit out of that is by stealing the coins and selling them before people figured it out. But, the amount of profit you made in that short amount of time would have to make up for the amount of time and energy you invested in hacking Bitcoin in the first place, right? Well, you're not going to get the whole market cap of Bitcoin. There's no chance, because once people figure it out, the price will go to zero and you may have only made a few $1 million. So that kind of deterrent is for someone who wants to hack Bitcoin for profit, but you might argue that there's other incentives for hacking Bitcoin, but this was the example I was just exploring. Now the next bit I've highlighted down here in the cyan color, this is under a heading called a burgeoning industry. And it reads that medicinal cannabis is one of the fastest growing industries in the US currently. Currently, estimates show the industry is valued at $6 billion, with expectations of growth of up to $50 billion by 2026. It says 25 states, along with the District of Columbia, have legalized the use of medical cannabis, with more expected to join the list after Election Day. So, just like I have been saying recently about Kim.com and the launch of Bitcash and Mega Upload 2.0, the more people that come along and use the services of the Bitcoin network, the more valuable Bitcoin becomes, and the more the price of a Bitcoin will increase. And why is this cannabis project going to succeed? Because it solves a real problem for real people. It gives patients peace of mind, and it gives the doctors who are prescribing them an invaluable tool they can use to source the exact strains that they want to prescribe to their clients. So thanks for watching, guys. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button, leave me a comment below with some feedback, and get subscribed. Or even consider supporting me directly by going to cryptoversity.com, going to the podcast page, and sending me a Bitcoin tip to the address on that page. If you'd prefer not to actually spend any money to support me, then you can go over to the Steam It network, click the upvote button, and that'll get me some cryptocurrency without you having to spend a dime. If you prefer something physical in exchange for your donation, then head over to the Cryptoversity merchandise store, where you can buy yourself a t-shirt with the Cryptoversity branding on it. That kind of thing helps me out a lot. Or if you would like more structured information on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchains, then head over to the courses section and buy yourself an online course. That's all for today, so until tomorrow and the next episode of the Cryptoverse, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.